name is Jireh, your host, and yes, today, or at least the day this episode will be published, it is February 14th. You know what that means, right? It's Valentine's Day, or some people call it Hearts Day, Love Day, Single Awareness Day. Is that still a thing to say? Or if you're with your girls, it's Galentine's Day. So what are your plans? What are you guys up to today? Well, whether you are single, married, or single again, I just want to take the time to say thank you for being here. Thank you for the love and support you've given to the Real and Radiant podcast in the past 2 episodes. So thank you. All right. I want to know, how do you feel about this day? Some, whether they're single or in a relationship, they go all out on this day, decked out in red and pink, the whole flower bouquets, boxes of chocolates, heart-shaped candies. But others just see it as a commercialized holiday and basically roll their eyes. So what's your take on it? For me, most of my Valentine's Day have been more so the Galentine's Day, which are fun too. I usually, especially pre-pandemic, go out with a girlfriend, we grab dinner, get a couple drinks, and just talk for hours like women naturally do. But this also means most of my sharings online on this particular day have been about singlehood and contentment with Jesus. And in this year, on this podcast, in this very episode, it's no different. I am actually part of my church's women's ministry, and we are kicking off our first series of 2022 entitled True Love Stories. So they actually asked me to represent the singles, and share my testimony. So I figured, well, why don't I just share it for the Real and Radiant podcast listeners too? We all love some already curated content, so why not? So I've already recorded it and sent it to our ministry coordinators and our ministry head. And so for the next 5 to 6 minutes or so is that recording of me sharing about 2 previous relationships that have really impacted my life. And of course, I'm sharing what I learned from them. This portion will actually be video, since I had to do a video testimony recording. So if you're on YouTube, or you want some video, head over to YouTube and you'll see me decked out in my Valentine's Day outfit. But I welcome all marital statuses here on the podcast. But yes, I must say this one is especially for my single ladies. So enjoy. Hello, my name is Jireh, and my love story began as a little girl when my mom shared with me who Jesus is and what it meant to have a relationship with him. I was young and didn't know nearly as much as I do now, but even then, I believed that there was a God who loved me, who cared for me, showered compassion and kindness over me, and wanted the best for me. As I grew up, my relationship with God grew and developed by being involved in church activities and singing praise and worship songs as an outlet for both the good and bad times. Whenever I slipped and did wrong, I knew that going back to him and asking for forgiveness was the best decision I could make every time. And God never failed to show his unconditional love with me. Unfortunately, my love for God would eventually be divided when I entered my first real relationship as a senior in high school. I started prioritizing my boyfriend over my relationship with God and cracked open the door of temptation more and more every time we were together. Eventually, the Lord brought me to the Philippines to study fashion design and marketing. After 2 years on and off and trying to make a long-distance relationship work, he eventually broke up with me. I was devastated. Living across the world and not being able to do anything about it was difficult. but I think that was the Lord's strategy. My ex's rejection was God's redirection. For the next 6 years, I didn't enter another relationship and solely focused on my relationship with God. I returned to studying and meditating on His Word, and when I moved back to the U.S., I served at my church, became a youth group leader, sang on our worship team, grew from various Christian conferences and seminars, blogged about my faith, and went on international missions trips. As we say in the Christian sphere, I was on fire for God. In 2016, I moved to California for work and met a guy in our office. We got to know each other and started dating. I admired him for his hard work ethic, his relentless character to never give up, and his ability to always make me laugh. We had similar beliefs. We went to church together and had deep conversations about God. But the patterns for my relationship 6 years prior started to repeat themselves. I started living a double life and compromised one thing after the other. Sure enough, the Lord intervened and brought me back to the Philippines, this time for a business opportunity. And after 2 years in an on and off relationship again, our relationship ended. This time, it was the Lord's intervention for redirection. It's been 3 years of living the single life as a 30-year-old, and it's been a great adventure. I've realized that the Lord has always had a purpose for me here in the Philippines. Only by His grace, I've been able to serve Him in so many different capacities I never expected within the Women to Women ministry, at work, and in my own personal life. Although those breakups and heartaches were very painful at the time and my flesh still wanted a taste of the world's pleasures, I held on to the promise that God gives in Psalm 147, verse 3. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And I decided to become the woman who denies herself, takes up her cross, and chooses to follow Jesus wholeheartedly. God is the only source of true love, and unconditional love that extends patience, kindness, protection, respect, forgiveness, and hope forever. I want to encourage my single ladies out there that just because you don't have a significant other, that doesn't mean you aren't significant. Don't waste this time of singlehood. It can be a beautiful season if you are intentional about it. Serve Him by serving others. Get involved with a community outreach or a church ministry. Whatever gifts and talents He's blessed you with, use those to encourage and bless others. Don't be afraid of His redirection too. God's intervention and rerouting is always for our good. And whenever you do start to feel lonely, or you compare yourself to other love stories, use that as a trigger to pray for your future spouse. If that's your desire, pray that as God prepares him for you, may God also prepare you for him. Most importantly, always remember that someone is already truly, madly, and deeply in love with you, and that's Jesus. He is the only one that can ever satisfy any hole or longing you are feeling. If an earthly man has ever failed you, know that God's love is unfailing. Let me leave you with this verse from Ephesians chapter 3, verses 17 to 19. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the Lord's holy people, to grasp just how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Ladies, God's love is wide enough to include every person, long enough to last through eternity, deep enough to reach the sinner like you and me, and high enough to take us to heaven. God bless you, ladies. And there it is, folks. Yes, you know what? After last week's episode and then this week on love and relationships, phew, I'm gonna need to get a massage or, I don't know, do some self-care after this. But I pray you were encouraged and really know and believe that God is the superior and ultimate source of true love. And again, like I mentioned in episode 2, I really not sharing all of this just to share my struggles and woe is me. But like I said in the first episode, we're in this together. We're learning and we're growing together. So happy Hearts Day, happy Love's Day. And I want to leave you with this. Has a man failed you? Jesus will never fail you. Have you been hurt? God will allow challenges to stretch your faith and grow your character. And sure, we'll ask him, but why, God? But he won't intentionally hurt you just to give you pain. Have you been ghosted? Best believe the Holy Ghost will always answer you when you call on him. Have you been taken advantage of? Jesus isn't a user. He respects you. Are you crying yourself to sleep because of a relationship? God promises to be with you, to not be dismayed. He will strengthen you and help you. And, quite frankly, he'll give you the power you need to leave that relationship if need be. Do you feel lonely or afraid of being alone? He promises to never leave you nor forsake you. Are you getting impatient that you haven't met your spouse yet? Believe that God knows and sees the desires of your heart. And if it is meant to be, it will be, but according to his perfect timing and will. Do you feel a lack of love in your life? God abounds in love and more. He's compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and his faithfulness is abundant. And for sure, when you're fully secure and accept that love, accept his love, it will cause you to glow more than anything you could ever receive today. Let's get radiant from the inside out.